Hello, everybody. Welcome to Ongoing Mastery Presenting and Speaking, the podcast, the interview, and in this case, the re-interview. So today we're going back to a previous interview and we're going to ask what that person thinks about another interview we did. And we have the most amazing, wonderful storyteller, Kristin Spencer. How are you today?
I am doing well. Thanks for having me again, Kirsten, and I'm really excited for this.
So we had on Laura Packer, who is a storyteller who has all the experience, like all the awards, and oh my God. So Kelly and I wanted to ask you to come back on, and I know how I react to her, but I've known her forever. What do you think about that interview? And what do you think about her work as a storyteller?
Well, for me, pretty much nothing she said was a surprise, but I was sitting in my chair cheering and saying, yes, I know all the science she's referencing. I know the studies. I know that look on the people's faces, right? When you're like, storytelling is the answer to all your problems. And they're like, oh my gosh, this person like lives in a fairy tale. And then you start explaining. And like when she said, you can see their faces change and then they get engaged. I've seen that so many times, but I never get tired of it. It's always the most amazing thing.
So one of the things that is surprising, it's not surprising to you because it's part of your work, but when I'm talking about storytelling with people and how I'm talking about your work and Laura's work and so on, the neurology involved in storytelling and the fact that you can actually see brain changes in an audience member listening to a story and having an actual reaction as if the experience is real, that's profound and actually deeply strange for a lot of folks. How do you explain that?
Well, the simplest way that I found to explain it, because I was working on a book that's coming out next month, actually, and my editor kept saying, I don't understand what you mean. And I finally said, it's like Simon Says with brains.
Okay.
So
I like it.
like I'm talking, I'm giving you a story, and I always encourage people to use personal storytelling, which is something that Laura does go over in the book, like narrative storytelling for examples versus personal storytelling. And we, of course, we're on the same side because we know the brain science. But when I'm telling you a story from my personal life, it's lighting up the same areas in my brain that it is in your brain on a delay. So it's a lived experience then that we share, which bonds us and connects us. And that is extremely useful for sales. And that's what I use it for sales psychology, to create know, like, and trust. But I don't know if you've ever played like Simon, right? It's like a light up game where you have to match the pattern. And it is based on Simon Says. And that is what I failed to explain well in my chapter that the editor didn't like. But so
I love it.
I have the pattern going on in my brain. The same pattern is replicated in your brain on a slight delay because you're processing the information. And this is proven by scientific studies, like over and over and over again. The result is always the same. So now we can move forward with that information and use it for good or for evil. I choose to use it for good.
Yeah, please don't use your powers for evil. That's the official statement of this podcast. Please do not use your powers for evil. So you mentioned one of Laura's books. Do you happen to have it with you?
Yes, so I have From Audience to Zeal because it was the only one I could find on Amazon, and I didn't know she had a website. So I will definitely be checking that out. But I was wondering if we could just go through some of the amazing quotes she has in here because, you know, when she came on, she can't give her own quotes. That seems so like weird, but I can geek out on her because I'm not her. So do you want to go on that
yes,
journey
please.
with me?
That is exactly what I was hoping. I knew that you would click for you, but I was hoping like we could expand the conversation about storytelling by doing this. So yes, please. Some of the quotes from her book.
Okay, so I did not write this, unfortunately, but Laura did, which I'm very thankful for. So she says, storytelling is a living art, and as such, we must not fear the deeper work and the harder questions, asking just what is it all about anyway? And
Mm,
I have never found a one sentence that describes storytelling better than that.
fantastic. Yeah, it's so funny because I think of storytelling now in a deeper way because of people like Laura, but I know that it's still something that is a really new concept for people, especially in business and especially as a tool and as a connection point for things like sales and building teams and getting dynamics to click in. So, do you have any other
Yeah, and I
quotes?
think
Oh, but keep going on this
oh,
one.
I
Yes.
have more quotes, but I'd love to touch on that because it's ongoing mastery, right? And that's what this podcast
Yes.
is all about. So, when you show up in a space and you tell a personal story, you are sharing a lived experience. And that is important no matter what industry you're in. It builds bonds between team members. It displays your real life experience, which vouches for your skill set. So it's powerful in that it can establish you as an expert immediately without anyone knowing you, but also it bonds you to the other people in the room. And there is nothing else, like sales psychology included, right? And I know all about sales psychology because that's my job. Nothing else is as powerful as storytelling. And if you do not use storytelling in your business, you are leaving money on the table. I guarantee it.
I love it. I love it. Now, have you ever had this same conversation with, say, a sales manager or director and had them completely and utterly disbelieve you and then end up transforming into a fan? What was that like?
I do that like every day. So what
Okay.
I'll get on a call with someone and they're like, I am going to underestimate you, right? I show up, I'm a plus size woman with blue hair and they don't know what to do with me. And I totally get it. I don't care that they don't get it. But I understand that they're going to need some swaying when I show up as my full storytelling obsessed self. And I can watch the gears in their brain turn because I do this myself. I take them through a story. I listen. That's the first
Hmm.
step, right? Is listening
Yep.
because I want to know what's their lived experience because then I can address the problem they have with a story that's either my own personal story or my experience working with someone else. And that's the important part. If I tell a story about a client and I'm not in that story at all, I don't get the know, like, and trust. I don't get that connection. So they'll tell me, and then I guess what I tell them a story, and the wheels start turning in their head, and they look at me and they're like, could you really help me with that? And I'm like, yes. And I just proved the concept of my entire business to you because now you believe that I can help you, right? And they look at me and I'm like, I can help you do that with everyone else.
I
And they're
love
like,
it.
okay, but, and then this is the other layer that a lot of people don't get to. If you are not confident, you will not want to share your story. You do not think that
Mm.
your story is worth sharing. And that's one of the things that Laura talks about in her book. She says, your story matters. And I like jumped up and down when I saw that because that's my tagline that I always share because it does. It matters. And my clients or even my potential clients, they need help with that. They need to borrow my belief that their story matters because otherwise they will not share it and they will not see the results. They need that outside confidence that's coming to them saying, your life is valuable, your experience is valuable. And, when I tell them their story matters, they really believe it because I sit in story all day long. And it is my professional reputation and my personal reputation that I do not lie. I might have had a few more uncomfortable conversations with my kids than most parents would because my kids tell their friends that I won't lie and their friends come and ask me questions. And if I
Oh,
can
God.
answer it without upsetting their parents, I will.
Oh, I would pay money to see that. Oh my God. I can okay, see I was one of those kids. I would totally have done that. And I would have come up with a question that was just the worst. All right. All right.
And it
So
doesn't
let's
it,
oh yeah.
it doesn't faze me. I don't care. Like, I'm just a transparent person, but that serves me in my business because when I tell you, and I have told you this,
Yep.
that your story matters, you believe me, right? Because I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, and I remember when we worked together that it took you a little bit of work to get me to actually believe my story. That was not
And
the
your story was
easiest.
so great.
It was not the easiest story for me. But I don't want to tell people that. Okay, yeah. So I definitely had to borrow your faith, and that was wonderful. That was wonderful. All right, let's do another quote.
Okay, I have another one, and this is something I share about all the time too. But it was so validating for me to read this in her book, and it's when you shouldn't share a story because there are
Ooh.
stories you should not share. And so, this is like a dictionary for storytellers. It's A to Z. So under audience, she has the question or the statement because there's questions and statements. The audience is not your therapist. I was like, let's read a little more.
Yes.
Says, I have seen otherwise powerful stories ruined by the storyteller expecting the audience to take care of them, breaking into heartfelt sobs, or otherwise not managing their own emotions.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. And you and I are
You
both
know this as a
speakers, so we know
presenter.
this. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've seen this with speakers who go up and their need from the audience is a little clinical. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
They think I'm going to get up there and tell this story that's like super authentic and really heartfelt from me, and the
Yep.
audience is going to love it. But they go out there and they dump their emotions on the audience that they have not worked through themselves. They don't have an end to their story, so there's no conclusion, and everybody feels anxious at the end, and that is not
Mhm.
what you want.
Yeah, one of the things, I mean, one of the rules, as you know, in presenting is you never want your audience to feel bad for you for any length of time. Like they can feel sad or sorry
Right.
for you, but they shouldn't end on that. They shouldn't end on
No.
being brought down. They should end on at
Well,
least
and
a
let's
place
go
of
back.
wistfulness or intensity or happiness or something, but not like, oh, yes, you're saying let's go back?
Because why? Like, let's go back to the neuroscience, right? Because in their brain, they are patterning after you. And when
Yep.
you dump the drama and then peace out, their brain is stuck on that unhappy pattern instead of, I went through this. These are the things that I learned. The things you learned are always going to be positive because your brain is gaining information. You're helping them. When you're in service mode,
Yeah.
your brain is happy and they are going to pick up on that happiness, and they are also going to feel like, I want to serve others. So when your story can be service oriented instead of validate my emotions, it's going to have a totally different result, and it's going to leave a different flavor in the mouths of the audience.
Yeah. When I went to the NSA influence, quote unquote, influence conference, that's the title. And I just, wow, that's a little precious. But there was a speaker, and he's brilliant and he's wonderful and he's sweet. And he's a NASA speaker. But he was talking about the accidents and how they lost astronauts. And he was talking about the famous ones. And I'm connected to that through my uncle who made spacesuits. So at one point, he's showing the footage and playing audio of the call that did not get, the call to the astronauts, and then nothing came back. And I
Mm.
left and I went out in the hall and I got myself together and I came back, and other people at the table were getting upset. And we all kind of were like, okay, but he's going to end on an up note. He ended on the song that is dedicated to the silence of them not responding. It's a song about the accident and about the loss. And he ended on that. And I sat there just gobsmacked because I felt punched in the gut and I didn't have any place to put that. And as a speaker, you're responsible for that emotional journey.
You are. anytime you tell a story, you're responsible. And now that people are learning about the neuroscience behind it, I hope they will take that seriously, because you are creating a conditioned response inside not just one human person, but a whole room full of human persons who need to be able to function after that.
Yeah. And to like, I was not the only person who had some history with that and had some reaction. I just never expected to be like facing that in a speaking conference. So yeah, you definitely want to, when you're ending, you need to bring people to some sort of emotional conclusion, because the effect that you have on them as a person, it really matters. How do you craft those kind of endings as a storyteller? How do you bring people to the emotional conclusion? Yeah.
So I know you and Laura were talking about outlining, and I agree with what you both decided. And this is how I write my own books, right? Is I do the skeleton outline, because it gives me the freedom to have that creative experience where I'm not sure how I'm going to get to the next point. And that my brain loves that. But I will say, I have the end bullet. I know where I'm going before I start driving there, right? You need to know, what is my goal? And I know you already know this, because you've echoed this back to me so many times. Like, Kristin, you're just throwing information out there. What do you really want them to know? And so I hear your voice in my head now when I'm looking at my keynote and all that stuff.
I love it.
But you need to know, where do I want to take them on this journey? How is that conclusion going to serve them? And those are the questions I ask myself.
Awesome. Yeah. So the thing I want everybody to take away from this interview is showing that Kristin, who is a new friend in my life, and Laura, who is an old friend in my life, who are both expert storytellers, there are gifts that your connected circle can bring into your work. In ongoing mastery, you're never done and you're always learning. And for me, improv and storytelling are the things I'm working on in 2023. Those are the areas I'm expanding in my gift set. So what are the areas you're working on? What are you going to focus on in your mastery? Where are you going to grow into next? So I'm going to put you on the spot, Kristin. Do you have an ongoing mastery goal? Is there some place you want to stretch into in 2023?
Well, if you saw my list, you know I have 10 of them.
Okay.
But I won't tell you all of them now, because we don't have enough time for that. So for this year, my real focus is personally and professionally to scale better, because I am just one resource. If I work one-on-one with someone, it is going to be limited. If I work one-on-one with everyone, I can't help as many business owners as I want. Yeah. And I just get depleted, because I am very introverted, and I know that about myself. And so I'm setting up my schedule in my day differently. Now that I've just embraced that, I'm setting up my business model differently. Good. And at home, I am being more honest with my family about when I am peopled out, which is our family's official term for I need half an hour by myself.
Awesome. That's wonderful. So setting boundaries, fantastic. Excellent, excellent. All right. Yes. So thank you so much for your time today and for coming back on. I really appreciate it. And also, for those who are not aware, Kristin and I are both part of a group of 9 women that on LinkedIn you can find as SHIP. She has infinite potential. And we are a panel group that is trying to help women get to more stages and express themselves more authentically and in a lot of different ways. So please come check us out. I've got the Ongoing Mastery podcast. Kristin, what else do you have going on?
Well, I have my podcast, which you and Kelly have been guests on, Your Business Story. Right now, season 1 is coming out. Your episode is coming up soon. And in the next season, though, we're exploring the success that curiosity breeds. So I'm really excited for that.
Nice. Nice. All right. Fantastic. So we're going to wrap it up. Thank you, everybody. We will see you next time. Have an awesome day.
Bye.
And